hardly needs any introduction. Been here many times. Beth Beall, when was it we first met? On some trip a long time ago down to Vida Joven, back when it was Dorcas' house. So we'll just go ahead and Beth, who's also, in case you don't know, is also preaching today. In case you missed it. So, Beth.
Okay, hey, thanks folks for coming. I'm glad that you're all here. And do you all know each other? I mean, I realize you're all part of St. Paul's. If you don't know each other, I hope you meet a new friend before you leave today. I feel kind of far away from you, especially since we're a small group. But I am Beth Beall, and I'm the director of a nonprofit that's called the Vida Joven Foundation. And I say in my sermon a little bit about our history together, St. Paul's, because the Vida Joven Foundation today would not exist were it not for the work you did with the one orphanage, Vida Joven Orphanage, in the 2000s. So huge amount of indebtedness and gratitude to you all. What we're going to do today is hopefully this will be interactive and interesting for you. My assumption is that some of you, as Calvin said, some of you know a lot about the work of Vida Joven. Some of you may not know much at all, so I'm going to try to make everyone feel included with what's being presented. So Vida Joven Foundation, we are about transforming the lives of orphan children in Baja, Mexico, Baja, California. Now, let me see if I can. To begin, I would love for some of you to share. Tell me about a time when you have either experienced or witnessed care recently in your own life. How have you experienced or witnessed care? Anyone?
Sorry, we're still sleeping. Well, I can say.
Please, Calvin.
So, because I participate in showers, a blessing for our unhoused neighbors. So we care for them. Like I even saw someone that we were driving in who had come in who needed let's just say, definitely needed a shower.
Yes,
and
yes.
The gentleman got a shower and looked very happy and radiant afterwards.
There you go. And I know that up here we have Ellen and Hal Meyer, and I know that it was on, let me see if I have the day right, I think it was either Thursday or Friday that they were doing their weekly Meals on Wheels ministry that they participated in. So as we talk today about the work of the Vida Joven Foundation, I want you to recall that care is really at the heart of it all. And care, for those of you who are kind of word nerds like I am, the word care comes from the same root as the word heart. So care, corazón in Spanish, cœur in French, I think it is. So care. This is about a ministry of care and a ministry of heart. All right. Now, just so you know what my plan is this morning with you, is that we're going to go on a little journey together, take 3 steps together. Again, because a number of you are familiar with the ministry of Vida Joven, what I thought might be interesting is, given that this ministry has grown and expanded, I thought it would be interesting for you to hear about what the mission looks like in action in relation to one particular orphanage. Kind of a day in the life of the work of the Vida Joven Foundation with one orphanage. After that, I want to share with you what is emerging as the vision for our work in the next several years. And then 3, if we have time, I'm now in my 12th year working with this ministry, and I've become very aware of all the things I've learned, good lessons. So I thought I might share some of those and also invite you to reflect on ministry lessons you have learned here at St. Paul's. I know you all have been through a lot of changes and a lot of growth, and it's always good to reflect on what we're learning. So, to begin. All right. So, Vida Joven Foundation, as I said a minute ago, is about transforming the lives of orphan children by supporting and strengthening exceptional orphanages in Baja. So this is a map of orphanages that we are currently working with. Many of you from St. Paul's are most familiar with the one at the very top. It's called the Vida Joven, or officially Vida Joven de Mexico Orphanage. Underneath we have Eonime Orphanage, and then way down here, south of Ensenada, there are currently 4 orphanages. It's that time of year. I spent Friday and Saturday with our orphanage liaisons. Those are people who are on the ground visiting the orphanages regularly. I spent 2 days with them this weekend talking about, are there other orphanages that we want to consider working with in this new year? So, but this is the current picture. And the reason, when we began to reach out, I never expected that we would be kind of stacking up orphanages in Ensenada. I wonder, can you think of why all orphanages need a lot of help in terms of financial study support? Can you think why orphanages down in this area perhaps might need more help than those closer to the border? What would your thought be? Yeah.
They're farther from the border, so they have less visibility to people who.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly right. So most orphanages, and I'm speaking to people who live near the border, you're familiar with people crossing the border to, do good works across the border. Orphanages that are located closer to the border tend to get more visitors. And that's what every orphanage relies on. Most orphanages have 0 sources of consistent monthly support. And that's really what set the Vida Joven Orphanage apart, is that there was always a group of people from its inception here in the San Diego area that said, we will make sure you have what you need for these kids. I have not met any other orphanage that has that. They are sort of scrambling month to month. A church group might come and visit, the church might give some money, the church might give some in-kind donations, and that's great, but then the church might not visit again for another year. So these orphanages that are down south, they get far fewer visitors. So as we have been growing, it has come about that we are finding more exceptional orphanages down here in the Ensenada area that we really want to come into partnership with. So I thought it might be interesting for you to see a little bit about how this mission of helping the kids by helping the orphanages, what that looks like in relation to one particular orphanage. So Eonime Orphanage, up there at the top left, it's about 8 miles over the border, 7-8. And I referred to it this morning in my sermon for those of you who will be at the next one. So, because some of you have been to the Vida Joven Orphanage, formerly called Dorcas House, and or have heard about that one, that orphanage was started in collaboration between some folks in Tijuana and some folks in San Diego and farther north, up toward LA. So that was that birth story. The other orphanages that we're working with now, I thought you might like to hear, how do these relationships come about? So, when we decided and felt led and felt really excited to expand our embrace and begin partnering with more orphanages, the first thing that we did was reach out to social services, child protective services. Because all these orphanages have to be licensed in order to function. And so we reached out and said, give us a list of some orphanages that have really strong leadership, are doing really good work with the kids, and that really need some financial help. Because some orphanages do have a church that they count on for a lot of their help, or a Rotary group. We said, tell us about the ones that don't have any consistent funding. With that list, we, and I don't mean me, I mean the orphanage liaisons I'll tell you about, they went and they started visiting. They had a list of questions, their list of, hey, here's what we're looking for in a relationship. And the truth is we had started relationships with some orphanages that we no longer work with. We sort of begin in a probationary way. Is this a good fit? I guess first date would be a better word than probationary. It's like, how does this work? Is this a good match between us? So, this woman over here is Diana Ruby. There are 2 orphanage liaisons now that work for the Vida Joven Foundation. Diana is from Tijuana, now lives in Chula Vista, but is in Tijuana a lot of the time. Diana is our liaison for the Tijuana orphanages. That means she's the one who's on the ground, visiting, assessing needs, etc. So she and our other orphanage liaison, whose name is Rosabelia, she lives in Ensenada, they together went, and they were the ones who began to meet with directors, began to see whether there'd be a good fit. We heard about this orphanage, Eunime. Eunime is a blending of the names for Eunice and Naomi in Spanish. The director and founder, Juana, her 2 sisters, Eunice or Eunice and Naomi, were among the first 2 recorded cases of childhood AIDS in Tijuana back in the 80s. And her mother died from drug addiction, her sisters died, and Juana grew up with a real passion around caring for folks affected by HIV and AIDS, and she also grew up with a real passion to be an educator. She has spent decades now helping to destigmatize HIV and AIDS in the community. So at one point the government came along and they said, hey, we've got all these kids who are either HIV positive or who already have AIDS. We will give you a building and we would love for you to be the orphanage that cares for those kids. So that's what Juana stepped into. And Diana, as our orphanage liaison, met with Juana. Juana is very, you can sort of see, that's how she always is. She's actually going to college now to become an attorney. She's passionate, she's just, And when we gave her our first year funding a couple years ago, she tells it like it is. She said, this barely pays one's salary. And I said, well, we're just starting out, Juana. We're just starting out. We gotta see. So these 2 are in constant communication. So what does this work look like? Diana is there. Diana is there in person 2 to 3 times a month. She is in continual communication with Juana. They are constantly on WhatsApp together, on the phone. So this work that we're doing by helping orphanages, we, the Vida Joven Foundation, we don't run the orphanages, we don't tell Juana how to run the orphanage, but we are there. One of the things that we value are relationships. We don't just want this to be transactional. We don't just want to hand a check and say, oh, you need money, here you go. And that works for some people, but it's not what we want to be about. We want orphanages that are looking for real relationships. So Diana is there. Just yesterday when we were meeting, Diana got a text from Juana saying, oh, I'm going to be doing a golf tournament to raise some funds for the kids somewhere in Tijuana in 2 weeks. And Diana immediately, she showed me her phone. Diana said, I want to be there, let me know what time it is. So part of the work of these liaisons is just showing up, just caring, just being part of the life of the orphanages. This other piece, what does this mission look like, is really earning trust and practicing accountability. It was very interesting. The first year, we began working with Eunime. Juana was, she was more, it's not reserved, but I could tell she just wasn't sure if she could trust us. And where do you think that comes from? Experience, right? People who show up and they say, oh my gosh, you need money for school uniforms? I'll pay for that. And then she never sees a penny, right? So we come along and we say, we want to help stabilize your orphanage financially, and we want to be friends. We really want to be part of your family at this orphanage. So understandably, she was quite hesitant that first year. And after that first year, the relationship has just blossomed. Trust has been earned on both sides. Accountability, it's really important to us that when people donate money to help these orphanages, that you know that your money is going to actually help the kids, right? So every month, I send to Deanna a funding request form. Deanna sends that to Juana. They discuss together, okay, what is needed this month? We start with a baseline for every month. So at the beginning of 2026, we will say to Juana, here's the baseline that you can count on every single month so that you can budget. But on top of that, every month, there are always other needs. What kind of needs do you think there might be that come up in an orphanage? Healthcare, a kid needs a surgery, right? What else? Food, yes.
Food.
Schooling, schooling needs, Yeah. What's that? Clothing, that's right. All the schools are very particular about the kind of uniform they get. Uniforms, some of you heard me say this before. Sorry, my mouth is very dry. Orphanages, the school uniforms cost about $100 US dollars for school uniforms. Which is why you have lots of kids, plenty of kids who don't go to school, right? So there are always additional needs. So Juana gets her funding request form. She and Deanna fill in what's the baseline that we've committed to every month, and then what are the additional needs, right? I'll show you in a second one of the additional needs that came up recently. We get that, we do a wire transfer to each orphanage. They all have a business banking account in the orphanage's name. And then every 6 months, part of our effort to build trust and accountability is that we provide for a financial review of the orphanage's books. And when we approach this, we always say, like, this is not because we're suspicious. This is because this actually helps you, just like it helps us. That if we can say to supporters, hey, we can vouch for the finances of this orphanage, then more people will want to give. So we've had a good response to that, and thank you. Thank you. Okay, this has been Dream Bigger Together. This is the language that we've been using a lot lately, is with all of our orphanages. How can the liaisons and the orphanage directors dream bigger together? I mentioned a moment ago that just this Friday and Saturday of this weekend, I spent 2 days in a staff planning retreat with Deanna and then with our orphanage liaison in Ensenada. And one of the things that came out of that, and I'm just beyond thrilled, is that in 2026, we want to have a 2-day retreat with all the orphanage directors. And at that retreat, the focus will really be on the liaisons. They'll be the facilitators of the retreat, inviting the orphanage directors to dream bigger for the children in their care. These directors live so in the day-to-day. If you go to visit A&E May Orphanage, Juana might be out paying the electric bill, because sometimes it doesn't work online. So you gotta cross town, pay in person. Everyone's running around. Did the kids get their homework done? You know, did so-and-so get his medicine? The kids at her orphanage have very regulated medication times. It is day to day. Well, we're really excited about taking 2 days, making it possible for the directors to get away for 2 days, and to have a planning retreat where they can begin to envision what is their dream for these children. And then our work will be to say, okay, in their dream, which of those pieces has our name on it? You know, what can we help them to fulfill? So having a retreat with orphanage directors is that's a step forward for us, and I'm really excited about that leadership development. Now, this, I will say unapologetically, if you're on our mailing list, I want you to be like, oh my gosh, something else from Vida Joven. My dream would be to get to the place where I have something in your mailboxes every single month. The reason for that is, I feel like I can be honest with you, I know plenty of times, even the charities that I support that I love, there are times I get something and I just don't look at it, right? Other times I will look at it. my goal is let me send enough that you might actually look at a little bit of it over the course of the year. Part of this, at the heart of this work really is communicating with supporters, letting supporters know, here's what the need is. You're gonna hear in a moment, we needed some airplane fare for Juana. Here's what the need is. And after we ask you for help, I want Vida Joven to be known for being really good at thanking people. We want to thank you from the heart. We want to thank you in a way that makes you see what you're gifted. And then that we report back to you and say, hey, that money you donated, here's what it looked like for this child. So this work is about showing up, earning trust, practicing accountability, dreaming bigger, and communicating lots. Now, so to drill down a little bit further, what does this mission look like in practice? What's actually going on the ground with these orphanages? Okay, I think some of you probably know what WhatsApp is, some of you may not. WhatsApp is a texting and video platform. I learned, Bishop Susan, she's been working, when she first started working to create the shelter for migrants in Tijuana, she had said to me, Beth, I've been emailing the Bishop of Western Mexico, Father Ricardo. He's not responding. I said, this is Mexico, communicate by WhatsApp. So she immediately sent a message by WhatsApp, heard right away. So when I say everything's on WhatsApp. So Diana is in constant communication with Juana. Yesterday, while we were at our retreat Friday, Saturday, Diana said, hey, we're making plans for 2026. What are you thinking in terms of what you would like to request? Like the constant. So, what does this work look like? On top of the consistent monthly support, right? We're at the beginning of 2026. We'll say to every orphanage, okay, here's the base amount you can count on so that you can budget for groceries, etc. There's a lot of help with unplanned expenses. So we are always trying to build up this reserve fund. This was a screenshot from a much longer conversation. The white is Juana's typing, the green is Diana's. What Juana's saying is, and there's also this kid, soon we will be the only orphanage at the national level that is caring for kids with these conditions. So she says, I'm looking for someone to help with the airfare. And Diana says, oh yeah, I was reading the report you sent. Are you looking for airfare to go pick this child up? Let me know how much so that I can give the information to Beth, et cetera, et cetera. So the story is that this boy, and if you happen to get a newsletter and happen to open it that I sent recently, I highlighted this kid named Juan. This little boy was down near Mexico City, and he was born HIV positive, and it's not uncommon. Of the, let's say, 20 kids at Juana's orphanage, there's probably about 6 that have pretty significant developmental challenges. Any ideas why that would be? What's that? That's it, plenty, yes. Yeah. A lot of, yes, exactly. A lot of fetal alcohol syndrome abuse, and yes, exactly. So she has kids who have significant developmental challenges. Alex was down near Mexico City at an orphanage, and that orphanage is going to close. And his grandmother could not take care of him. And so Child Protective Services at the federal level called Juana, and they said, we have a kid, we know that you're good at taking care of kids who are affected by HIV and AIDS, can you take this child? And she said yes, and then she reached out to Diana, I don't have money for airfare, because the government wasn't, the state wasn't going to help pay for her airfare to go get him. So we said, absolutely. So there's the asking, but then the reporting back, the accountability, that's really important. This isn't a live video, but when Juana got Juan, she took a video of him walking in front of her. They were getting ready to go into the airport in Mexico City. So as he's walking, she snapped a picture of him heading into the airport, and she immediately sent it to Diana to say, like, I used your money for what you gave it to me to use for. So that kind of accountability is really important, and again, it builds trust. So this is kind of a moment in the ongoing mission that we're about, is helping children by helping these orphanages. Funding is critical since many do not have that consistent monthly funding, but it's also more than that. It's also about the relationships. Now, this is an orphanage way south of Ensenada called Oasis or Oasis. The director used to be they actually called it a warden. He was like a warden at a juvenile prison. And he kept seeing boys come back, and he said, we've got to be able to do something better. So he and his wife opened an orphanage specifically for teenage boys. I was with him in July, and he said, I don't want the good kids. Give me the bad kids. And he has created an amazing program with a real strong emphasis on job skills training for the boys. So one of the things we're working to help fund is they have workshops in carpentry, they have workshops in cooking, they have workshops in beekeeping, workshops in doing electrical work. So it's teaching these boys some good hard skills. So as the Vida Joven Foundation grows and emerges, as we've grown from supporting that one orphanage in Tijuana to now supporting more, and now as we are learning more about building relationships and being in partnership with the orphanages, here are the things that are emerging organically for us. At the heart is this support and stability for orphanages. That's huge. Just yesterday, I don't have my phone here, Juana, whom you met, the director of A&E Orphanage, while we were at this staff retreat, Juana texted Diana to say, I don't know what I would have done if you didn't come along. I think we would have closed. This monthly support and stability for orphanages is huge. And that's where I thank you for being people who get it. There are plenty of people who say, oh, does the orphanage need new soccer balls? Does the orphanage need a new refrigerator? Which, yeah, that stuff happens. But at the fundamental level, what's really needed is for these directors to be able to count on a consistent amount of monthly funding. It gives them the stability they need to provide stability for the children. So that's at the heart of the work. The second piece is this leadership development for orphanage directors. And that's really grown out of conversation with the directors, where they say, like, we are so embroiled in the day-to-day, we don't get time to step back and think, gosh, what do I want my orphanage to look like 5 or 10 years down the road? So I'm super excited, as I already said to you, about beginning with our directors retreat next year. It's not about us directing what the outcomes are, but about really providing a space where these directors can reflect on what is it that I am called to do as the director of this orphanage. So leadership development, and then this vocational formation for teens and young adults. This is something that we're also trying to formalize a little, not formalize, but have a stronger structure in place. What has happened in the past is that as kids have grown up and they get to be college age, then on a case-by-case basis, we're there to help them navigate those next steps. And that's great, but as you all know, doing things case by case isn't necessarily sustainable. And especially now that we're working with more orphanages, there are more kids who are coming up into junior high and high school. One of the things we'll be putting into place next year is a program. So we're going to have it's going to be, I think, in June, where all the middle school and high school kids from all the orphanages will get together. And we will begin a pathway for them to help. It'll start with a personality and interest assessment, where they will get to assess, like, what is it that I really like? What am I really good at? These are things that the orphanages are not equipped to do, and so we want to come in and make that available as the orphanages are caring for these kids as they're getting older. And then it goes beyond high school into young adulthood. So there are currently 4 young women who are college age, Deanna and Rosabelia, the other orphanage liaison. Part of their work is just being in constant contact with those young women, making sure that they are paying their rent if they're living independently, making sure that she has them show her their grades. So it's everything you would do for your own children, right, in terms of helping them launch into adulthood. So these are the pieces that we're really focusing on. And as I take a sip of water, any comments or questions on that before I head us into our final? Yeah, Ellen, go ahead.
We're sort of familiar with the aging out at 18 of years of age. It sounds like you're trying to also help kids that are older than 18. Is that still sort of the social services rule that they age out of the orphanage at 18?
Yeah, so at 18, every young person, orphanages are what we know as foster care. At 18, the kids are emancipated and they are no longer wards of the state. So social services has nothing to do with them at that point. Because many of these kids do not have families to go to for support, that's where we are trying to come in, be their family, and make sure that they have loving aunts and uncles in the form of Diana, et cetera, to say, okay, like this one young woman, Berania, she's just finished law school and now she wants to go and get another master's degree. So Diana is helping her navigate that. What we want is for these kids to know, anytime you need family, like we are here, and that there's not a magical number. Okay, Berania, once you get to be 25, we're gonna cut it off. When she's 40 years old and maybe has a child, we want her to feel free to reach out for whatever she might need. Penny, I think.
Yeah, Mexico is an enormous country, and I was shocked to see that you said Economy is the only orphanage that's equipped to care for children with HIV.
Yeah.
Does the Mexican government have to take care? Is there any plan for more?
Yeah, I have no idea if there's any plan for more, Penny, but it really does blow me away. So what Juana was saying in that WhatsApp screenshot that you guys saw is that she is licensed at the national level, which is like as high as you can go. Every orphanage in Baja California needs to be licensed at the state level to stay open. She's licensed at the national level, which means she's gone through additional work. She is looking, at this point, it looks like she will be the only one that's licensed at the national level. So there may be, there may be others, I would hope there are others throughout the huge country of Mexico that are licensed at the state level. But Mexico City called her. Yeah. So, okay. Well, this is just, just to throw some color and delight into this before I go to the final piece. I hope you all, as part of the Vida Joven Foundation community, I don't care if any of you know what our logo is. That doesn't matter to me. I don't care if you know what our brand colors are. When you think of Vida Joven Foundation, I hope some of these words might come to mind for you. When you think of being part of this work with the children, I hope you might think of, wow, an impact is being made. Wow, relationships matter. Vida Joven Foundation cares for me as a donor, They care about me beyond my financial support. I want you to feel that relationships are really important. I want you to think of joy. When you think of Vida Joven Foundation, I hope you'll think about trustworthiness, courage, right? We keep going forward. Wisdom and generosity, and not just financial generosity, but a generosity of spirit. Even like my board of directors and my staff, I say to them, you guys, being generous means we give each other the benefit of the doubt. We create a generous space of caring for each other. So we're trying to grow into an organization that is known for these things. Now, ministry lessons being learned. 10 Penny, what year was it that you came here, around 2013?
14.
Okay, Penny and I started with Vida Joven in 2013, and I remember we went to lunch, so I know that we've had a similar tenure in terms of years. And it's probably, I feel really cliche, but it's because I will turn 60 next month, so I'm like thinking very seriously and deeply about life. And I've been reflecting on lessons learned. I plan to be with the Vida Joven Foundation a long time. My financial advisor has said I need to work till I'm about 75. So there's lots of growth that's going to go on with Vida Joven. By the way, those of you who already heard or who will hear in the second service, this is Alex. This is the little boy whose story I share. Okay, just so you know. This is a young woman named Joseline, Joseline came to one of the orphanages just this past year at age 16, had never gone to school, and she is excelling, just doing so well. This little guy's name is Dylan. One of the orphanages is for children with profound special needs. He does not hear. He has to be fed through a tube. So keeping the children at the center of the reflections I want to share with you. The number one and probably biggest lesson that I have learned, and I invite you to reflect on this for your own ministries here at St. Paul's. I keep trying to ask myself the question, whose need is this? A couple years ago, my board of directors and I went to visit all the orphanages. We visit throughout the year, but as a group, we go once a year. And we had just started working with A&E May, and we were going on a tour of the A&E May orphanage, and it was like ceiling kind of like this, but like lots of the things were out, so it's just like these big gaping holes in the ceiling. And after we went there, we stopped and had something to eat, and one of my board members said, "You guys, we just got to write a check and we can help them get that roof fixed. Like, that's an easy one. We can do that." And I said, because I've needed to learn to do this, looking at my own sort of instinct to help, I said, "Did you hear the director say that she needed her roof, her ceiling taken care of?" And he said, "No." I said, "What did you hear her say?" And he said, "She said she needs money for staff." And I said, "Yes, that's what we hear more than anything. Please provide funding for salaries. Because if we don't have staff, we cannot serve the children." So whose need? When we go into an orphanage, all of us as people with big hearts, we see needs and we want to help. "Oh, that child, their shoes are all dirty. Let me get them some clean shoes." And I've really been learning, and will keep on learning for the rest of my life, to step back and to say, whose need am I trying to respond to? Is it my need to see a quick fix? Boy, if I just get some shoes for that kid, I'm gonna feel good. So I imagine you all wrestle with that here as well. That as ministries emerge, and as you engage in ministry together, let's keep before our hearts this question of whose need are we trying to respond to? So that's the biggest thing I've learned. Whose need? And really it's a sensitivity to that question that really is driving our vision with the Vida Joven Foundation. We are trying to respond to the needs of the orphanages. And that doesn't mean that all of those needs are ours to meet, but it means their needs are centered. So a second lesson I've been learning, I didn't have a quicker way, a more concise way to say this, but just to invest deeply and hold loosely. Every relationship, we want to pour in everything we have. Every orphanage, we want to give the best of who we are as the Vida Joven Foundation. And we all know, everyone in this room, sometimes kids don't make it. Sometimes kids can't overcome their demons, no matter how many opportunities we offer. sometimes the past is more powerful than what we are able to do in the present. But that doesn't mean that we stop giving anything less than all that we are. So with every orphanage we come, we bring, just like you all in worship, you bear your gifts forward right up to the altar. We bear everything we are in service of these partners that we believe God has called us into partnership with. We invest deeply and we hold loosely. If something doesn't turn out the way I had hoped it would turn out, I am trying to learn to let it go, but not let that keep me from investing deeply the next time. So that's another big lesson I've been learning. And then lastly, clarity. In 2023, I moved back to the west area of Western Pennsylvania. I had gone through a pretty hard time, had gone through a really heartbreaking divorce during the pandemic. And then my lifelong friend died. And when I was at her funeral with my parents, I had gone back east for it, I just knew, I thought it is time for me to be close to my mom and dad. My parents are both almost 90. And I had that clarity. I didn't know how it was going to come about, didn't know what would happen with my job with Vida Joven, but I knew what I knew, right? That it's time to be home. My heart is broken. I need my parents. Practically, my parents need me for some help. So finally, end of 2023, things finally came together, right? Even when we get clarity, it can take a long time for it to sort of, all the pieces fit together. So I moved back, and that's my home base now, is Western PA. Western PA is home because it's where I grew up. Culturally, it's a very different place, and I have had many people, as people come to us and say, "Oh my gosh, do you like it here?" And I say, well, I'm clear about why I'm here. My clarity is I am here to be with my parents, to be for my parents until they are no longer on this earth. Having that clarity is really all that matters to me. Do I like the town I live in? But it really doesn't matter, because I know why I'm there. So the ministry lesson that I keep learning, as we, as my board, and I, as you, as we try to steward this ministry that God has handed to us, is to be clear about our mission. What is it we're doing? And what are our values? What do we want to be known for? Impact and joy, wisdom, trustworthiness. Being clear about our values has become incredibly important to me and to my board and to my staff. As we seek other orphanage partners, those values, we say, okay, do we see impact at this orphanage? Do we see wisdom in the leadership of this orphanage? Do we see joy at this orphanage? So having clarity about what our job is and what our values are. You all, many of you, remember when Vida Joven meant one orphanage in Tijuana. I never could have imagined that we'd be where we are today. And since I will likely have to work another 15 years, I can't begin to imagine what God has in store. But my prayer is that God will help us stay clear about our mission and clear about our values, and to keep trusting that this is God's work. So, that's what I wanted to share. Yeah, I'm done.
Yes, so time for some questions.
Oh, thank you. I think it's remarkable that you do what you do from Western Pennsylvania. I was raised in Eastern Ohio, near Canton.
My parents are in Hermitage, Sherry, right?
Oh, right across the border.
Exactly.
I wouldn't live there for the world.
I
So that's why I think it's really terrific that that you can do what you do from there. But how do you do that? I mean, you're able to, thanks to the internet or thanks to whatever.
Yeah, you know, that it really was a blessing of the pandemic, right? That all of a sudden we could visualize work differently. Because when I got my clarity about, hey, time for me to be near my mom and dad, I really didn't know if it would work for me to continue to serve Vida Joven. But my board of directors said, well, people are working remotely, let's give this a try. So I fly back about every 6 weeks. It was my move that that gave birth to our hiring 2 part-time orphanage liaisons, because I used to be the one on the ground. So now we have these orphanage liaisons. And the gift to the Vida Joven Foundation has been, you may not know me well, but you can probably tell I'm like full of energy, I'm all over the place. And when I was in San Diego, I like nothing better than to hop in my car and go visit orphanages. What I really need to be doing is focusing on our fundraising. So being in Pennsylvania means I can't just hop over the border, and I really am, I have much clearer focus about what my part in the puzzle is, and I have these amazing orphanage liaisons. So that's how it's happening. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yeah,
We're of course hearing about how, at least at the US level, funding for these kind of things is
Yeah.
vanishing.
Yes.
My understanding is you don't have much federal funding, if any. So is there any government funding from either US or Mexico side?
Is that, what was the second?
Any government funding?
Zero, yeah.
Zero.
That,
Which other than frees you up a lot.
That's right, it really does. I mean, government funding for orphanages tends to take the form of a state, the state might once a year say to an orphanage, here, we're gonna cover your light bills for 2 months, and it's a big PR thing. Or they might give a bunch of donated in-kind food, but it's not at all consistent. So all of our funding for the Vida Joven Foundation is individuals. So we are all about good people saying, hey, I can help to keep these orphanage doors open. Yeah, so we are not affected by any cuts to federal funding because we don't get any. Yeah.
Yeah, Carolyn.
Hi. As somebody who's been connected to am I on? Since almost the beginning of our relationship, it's just amazing to me to see how you've taken off with this. I know that several years ago there have been attempts to find a different location for the original Vida Joven, and that's, as far as I know, never happened. And so you're still in the same location?
Correct.
And
yeah.
has anything, have you remade the house to, what kind of changes you might have made?
Yeah, so no new property has been found. It is many years of bumping up, especially against the reality of title fraud, where we would think a property would be good and then we'd find out, oh, the person who has the title actually isn't the owner. So I'll speak in a moment, Carol, about what the current property looks like, but I would say that has been sort of this clarity about mission and values. It's really a relief to me to say, because we on this side of the border, we were really driving that. We were the ones going to look at property. And now it feels really good to say, hey, Vida Joven Orphanage leadership, if you guys want to look for a property, go for it. Find some properties and we can consider funding them. But we're not gonna drive that car anymore. It's not our role. In terms of what the property looks like now, there are, like, one of the girls' dorms has been converted into an apartment for college students. So there are 2 young women who are living they grew up at the Vida Joven Orphanage, still live there. In fact, one of them is going to start college later this fall, and those of you on our mailing list will be getting an appeal about that soon. She is one of 2 young women living in what is now a young adult apartment. So they have their own bedroom, it's not bunk beds. They have a little refrigerator, a microwave, so it's just like an exercise in them being a little bit more independent. Everything else though looks the same, Caroline.
And how many people, children are there?
At Vida, at Vida Joven Orphanage right now, around 23. Yeah, and I would say, growth with the Vida Joven Orphanage is as we, on the US side, as we begin to get clear about our work, saying that our work is to support orphanages. What I've learned by working with other orphanages is that Vida Joven is the only one that has always had all their funding provided for them. Most orphanages are hustling. So Juana from Aonime, almost every weekend she sets up a table at a flea market with whatever. Sometimes we'll give her stuff. If we get donations that no orphanage wants, right, Juana, you can sell it to make money for your orphanage. Orphanage directors are hustling. A big way they hustle is calling university student groups, calling businesses in the neighborhood to say, hey, we're an orphanage, can you donate food for a month? And so it's a lot of in-kind supplies. So we had a talk with the Vida Joven Orphanage about 2 years ago. Hey guys, we've been doing this for almost 30 years now. What do you think about taking on some of your own funding? What do you think? And they said, absolutely. So the Vida Joven Orphanage is now increasingly, like we've drawn down some, not a lot, but drawn down some funding, and they are now building networks within the community, groups that come, groups that provide food for a week, etc. So yeah, so as we've worked with others, it's given us a model of, okay, we really don't want dependency, right? Because what if, for whatever reason, the Vida Joven Foundation on the US side closed? I can't imagine that this one, but nonprofits fail. What would happen to the Vida Joven Orphanage? So we went at it from that perspective, said, hey gang, can you stand on your own feet a little? And it's going really well, yeah.
Any questions?
Who's the current director?
Yeah, the current director of the Vida Joven Orphanage is a guy. His name is Aaron. Yeah.
So I've,
What's that? Sylvia's very retired. Yes, happily, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of founder syndrome in there. It took some, but yeah, she's happily retired.
so we should go ahead and let you get ready for this. So you're living in Western Pennsylvania, which is very, very different from San Diego.
That's right.
Assuming you talk to people there about what you're doing here, how does it, is it similar or contrast with people's ideas or questions or whatever about views of doing this kind of thing differ from what we have here in San Diego?
The view of supporting orphanages, there's the folks I've spoken with, mostly my parents are close to their church, etc. There's a lot of openness. It's more geographically, and what is your name again? Robert. Maybe Robert can resonate with this. I don't mean to put like a blanket over Western PA. I will pull out my phone to say, here's what I'm talking about on a map, because there's no concept of living right across a border. I mean, there's no concept, right? That's probably the biggest thing, sort of the geography, that as those of you living here know, Deanna, I keep pointing, but she's not, but Deanna, my orphanage liaison, I've said to folks in Western PA, when we talk about like cross-border realities, that's Deanna. She's raised in Tijuana, came here, became a US citizen, yet every week she's crossing multiple times. She gets her nails done in Tijuana. She goes to a doctor in Tijuana. It's like so much fluidity. That's the reality of the border that folks in my part of the country really have no sense of, because all they know is what is in the news. It's sort of like border, right? There's no sense for the fluidity of it. So I think that's the biggest difference for me, Calvin, is not only where Tijuana is, but just not understanding the border is so porous and fluid. So, yeah.
Okay. If it's real quick, Richard, we have to let whoever she is to preach. You may remember that.
Yeah, I'm impressed by your energy and your clarity and all the things that you do, and I'm amazed. But I'm wondering, how do you treat yourself? Do you have any time for rest and reflection just for you?
Oh, Richard, thank you. I do. So, I went through a divorce, so I actually quite happily live alone, and I love my alone time. I start my day with poetry most days of the week. Like Yeah, I'm a journaler and a poetry reader, and I have a beloved cat that I adopted in Tijuana who lives with me. Yeah, thank you, Richard, for caring. That matters, and that's part of what's motivate our desire to offer this retreat for the directors. It's not just about their long-term planning, but as I listened to Deanna and Rosabelia, we talked through a proposed agenda for the retreat with the orphanage directors, and they were saying, we need self-care. If the director wants a massage, let's have it for them. So it is important, isn't it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's thank Beth again for a wonderful presentation. And next week, Simpler Living will have a panel discussion about how we can try to move towards more energy efficiency. Decarbonization, sorry, I used the correct word, decarbonization of the diocese. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. So please come.